Beloved, let us love one another. Let us actively, intentionally, meaningfully love one another, putting others before ourselves. Let us do that. Let us do that. For that kind of love, that's from God. And whoever loves like that has been born of God and knows God. Anyone who does not love like that, want to love like that, strive to love like that, pray to love like that, does not know God. Because God is love. You can't be water and not be wet. Because water is wet. You can't be fire and not be hot. Because fire is hot. You can't be a Christian and not love. Because God is love. Now here's where it gets heavy. I gotta lay this on you heavy in order for you to get it. Follow me all the way through. Brace yourselves. In this, the love of God was made manifest among us. He's going to show us how now. That God sent his only Son into the world so we might live through him. And this is love. Verse 10, this is love. This is agape. Here it comes. This is it. Not that we have loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be propitiation for our sins. Now, it's not just talk anymore. It just got real. Because up until now, John tells us to love. He tells us where love comes from. He tells us that God is love. And it's easy to just talk. Show me. Prove it, John. Let me see it. Let me see. I love that Jesus is not a sideline God. You know, he's a God that actually came out onto the field to show us how it's done. And John's about to tell us. He's about to prove it. He's about to provide evidence. John says, in what I'm about to tell you is how you know that God is love and that he loves you. In this, the love of God was made manifest among you, was made obvious among you, was made visible among you. This is how God proved his love. This is how God communicated his love. This is how God demonstrated his own love for us. In that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Do you get that? Do you get while we were still sinners, Christ died. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. For one will scarcely die for a righteous person, though perhaps for a good person one would dare to even die. But God actively, intentionally, meaningfully proved beyond a reasonable doubt his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. While we were haters of God, Christ died. While we were enemies of God, Christ died for us. God, being rich in mercy, because of the great love, the agape love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our own trespass, made us alive together with Christ. By grace, that's love. That's love. That's love. That's love. Not that we love God. Not that we love God. Not that, God, I hate you. Feel that. Feel that. God, I hate you. I hate you. I want nothing to do with you. That was us. That was us. Okay? And I'm not just talking about before you were born again. Enemies, haters, sinners, actively, intentionally, meaningfully hating God. Each and every one of us. Actively, intentionally, meaningfully, agape loving sin. And like I said, I'm not just talking about before we were saved. I'm talking about right now. Right now, where you sit and listen today. When you sin, you prove your lack of love for God. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. Because Christians get so puffed up in their own love for God, in their own dedication and faithfulness towards him. Oh, I just love the Lord. Then you go home and click on pornography. Oh, I love Jesus. Then you curse out your daughter, your son, your spouse. Oh, I love God. Then you go and gossip behind people's backs. I love you, God. No, you don't. By nature, we don't love God. By nature, not the way we're commanded to, not the way he deserves, Not with all our heart, all our mind, all our soul, all our strength. Not with agape love. As a Christian, you're in a relationship with Jesus. Spouses are not supposed to cheat on each other. And we cheat on Jesus more than we even know with sin every day. Time and time again. We continue to sin, and he continues to love us. That's love. That's love. That's agape. Not that we love God, not that but he loved us and sent his son to be propitiation for our sins. Do you get that? Do you get that? Do you read the fact we do nothing for God? We do nothing. We add nothing. We do nothing. He don't need us. He don't need God all by himself. On the contrary, we were offensive. We're offensive to him, an enemy of him, a hater of him, dead to him, rightfully deserving his wrath and punishment. But because of his love, out of his love, agape love, he sent his son as propitiation. He sent his son to appease his wrath towards you. Personally, you. And that son, Jesus Christ, who is God, who is love, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant. Being born in the likeness of men and being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on the cross, actively, intentionally, meaningfully, personally, putting you before himself. And he did it all out of love. While you were a sinner, while you were a hater, while you were an enemy, that's love. That's love. That's a God. Now let that sink in. Beloved, if God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. I mean, he's right. What a case. Listen, you know yourself. You know the evil, dirty, sinful things you think, say, and do on the daily. And he still loves you. And because he loves you personally like that, you ought to love one another just like that.